What's good in the hood? Coming at you with a tier list. Since it's practically the end of the year, though there is one more fight night, um, and it's not a very good one. There is some underrated fights and a few debuts that are of interest, but I'm gonna do a breakdown, a tier list of who do I expect in 2026 to keep their belt, to become or to stay champion. 2025 was eventful. I think we there was some curveballs, there were some titles that were regained, and yeah, I think obviously there's some that they ain't changing, but there's others that, especially the new champions that we got last week or so, it's going to be of interest. And with this Paramount era starting, I honestly feel like we're going to see a lot more title fights. I think they're going to really push for it, especially in the first year, to make sure every pay per view has two, sometimes three. White House probably going to have three. Um, was it Fight Night or International Fight Week? That could have three. I mean, the world's their oyster now with all this funding they have. But let's start it off. My girl, Mackenzie Dern. She was one of the champions that, to be fair, was not in anyone's bingo card. Obviously, Zhang Wei Li was the champion, decided to vacate it. So Dern is in a special case because A, she did not beat the lineal champion, and B, she is by no means the consensus number one straw weight in the division. Oopsies. We do a little move in. Anyways, Mackenzie Dern, despite being, I would say, I think we can all agree it's a champion that Dana probably, and UFC as a whole, they're happy to have for obvious reasons. She's got some really good assets. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, she's in major danger strictly because Zhang Wei Li is most likely returning to her, her domain after her failed attempt against Valentina. And I don't see how Mackenzie Dern gets past Zhang Wei Li. Like, we're just gonna leave it at that. There's other people looming. My girl Fatima Klein, she's on the uprise, 12th ranked right now. She's pretty active, so if she won two more, I don't see why she couldn't get a shot at Dern. But Dern's most likely, if it's not her first defense, it's her second one later in the year. It's gonna be against Zhang Wei Li. She's effed. She is effed so bad. Moving on. Joshua Van. I put him in concerns because, again, he's in a similar position to Dern. He did not beat the lineal champion. The lineal champion, Pantoja, got hurt within, 30 seconds of the fight. And we did not get past, is Van, is he what he says he is? Is he the top dog? He's young. He's the second youngest champion ever. Happy for him. But yeah, I mean, sure, he has a win over Brandon Royale, number two. He had some wins before that. He was on a little streak, but the reality is, most people were not expecting him to get past Pantoja. And on top of that, now you have Tatsuro Taira, who just put a clinic against Brandon Moreno, and he's looming. And based off what we're expecting, it's going to probably be potentially a quick turnaround. Tatsuro Taira versus Joshua Van. Tough fight, especially Tatsuro Taira. I cannot say his name. Very good grappler. Obviously, as we saw, was able to overwhelm Brandon Moreno, who's pretty good in the wrestling exchanges and all that. And that's obviously the main concern Van had against Pantoja, so it's going to carry over to that matchup. And assuming Pantoja isn't completely crippled, knock on wood, he's going to get an automatic rematch. And that is something where I put it in concern, not threat, just because he might get away for a whole year, not having to deal with the Pantoja looming shadow over his, I don't want to say fake reign, but I mean, yeah, it's to a degree fake. He didn't beat it's not even like Dern where it's like, oh, you beat someone to win the vacate belt. You beat a guy because he blew his elbow/shoulder out. So yeah, there's definitely concern because he's got to get past Tatsuro Taira. May have to fight another guy around the middle of the year, and then assuming Pantoja only has minor, not crippling injuries, he's probably gonna have to fight that guy potentially at the end of the year, if not early next 2027. So definitely concern. But if Pantoja is not in the wings, it's doable. Moving on. We're gonna jump right up to inevitable. Islam. Why do I put him in inevitable? Because he looks so god good and so good, goddamn good against JDM. Like really good. And the thing with that is that JDM was to a degree the cream of the crop of that. I mean, I mean, we don't know how good Islam actually is at welterweight. More so, we saw JDM had some major holes in his game, and Islam probably out of all, or yeah, probably out of all these guys and girls, probably has some of the most looming threats. But you have to factor in a few things. A, Ramadan's coming up early in the year, around like February, March, I believe. So that affects Islam's activity. Not to mention he is top 3, top 4 biggest names, and obviously the pound for pound right now. So it makes me think, compared to someone like Joshua Van and even Mackenzie Dern, he's not going to be active. He's going to fight probably 2 times this year. And that's generous because, he's another guy that if he's injured partially or otherwise, he's not pulling what Merab does and fighting frequently. So I expect him to fight around the White House time period, May, June maybe, and then assuming he's active like his base activity would be, he'd fight around November, December. He might not wait, or he might wait until like January. So he might only get one title fight because he's just such a big name. And outside of all the contenders, you can go watch my prior video. Even with my thought that Usman's the only one with the baseline wrestling to not just get straight wet blanket, let alone finished, I just don't see any of the guys having a reasonable chance against him. He looked very good in his welterweight debut, and he did it against a guy that was A, undefeated and undefeated for years, and B, took out a lot of, ranked guys. He took out Gilbert Burns. He took out Bilal convincingly. So yeah, I don't think Islam. You can trust that unless he retires, he's a safe bet to probably get 2 title defenses. Moving on, we're gonna have a curveball. Ooh, I don't know where to put Peter because I love me some Peta. I gotta put concern just because there's honestly 3 threats that come to mind. And Peter, well, he does live in Russia, and it's not that he's inactive. It's just they probably are gonna pick. He's only gonna do pay-per-views, obviously one now. Moving forward, that he's the champ. And B, it just feels like for him, it's like he definitely likes to fight, but also I just don't see him doing more than 3 this year. 2 to 3 is probably the safe bet for him. But you look at the rankings, and he's got some big looming threats. Some that due to just the nature of the business, and others just due to the fact that they're inevitable. Merab, he's going to have to fight Merab this year. That's a guarantee, assuming he's champion when Merab decides to come back. Merab's guaranteed a rematch, and Merab made some excuses or whatever, Corona version 2 virus. I get it, but it's irrelevant. He lost the fight. Peter looked amazing. Predicted these things. Go back and look. But he's going to have to fight Merab. So that's going to be tough. Trilogy fight. Merab's probably going to actually adjust his game plan and, actually try to fight a little smarter and not do it, as he said, for the fans' pleasure. So there's concern there because you got Merab. On top of that, Umar, he's got a fight booked in January, so he's most likely going to beat Figueroa, so he's pretty much guaranteed probably another crack at the title. He's a very tough competitor just because he does what Merab can't do, which is actually strike very well, the kick game, all that. And on top of that, he still has pretty high-level wrestling where I don't think Peter could – I just feel like he couldn't dominate Umar like at times he might have done with Merab. And Umar is going to threaten the takedown Peter, which it would probably be one of the most interesting fights you can have all year. And then I said 3 threats. I think Sean O'Malley, if he gets a win, he's going to sit on that win. And it's all going to come down to timing. So White House, Sean, he's going to get, or in some ways, Peter might want the rematch too, because A, Sean's a big name, and B, he does have that artificial loss to Sean. So when you fight Sean and you're not aggressively going for takedowns like Marab did and others like Umar probably would do, there's always a higher risk with Sean where he could just crack you with something. So Peter's definitely got some concerns. I might move him up to safe just because he looks so goddamn good that it makes you think, and he's never been finished or anything, so it makes you think you're gonna have to beat him over 5 rounds. And sure, Marab has done that once, but he couldn't do it the second time. Let's see. Moving on. Kayla. I'm gonna put safe. I mean, she's got to match up a tough one against a returning Amanda Nunes, but Amanda's been retired for a couple years now. And I feel like Kayla, unlike, and I'm just comparing it to Ronda right now, Kayla has the judo, but I feel like she has a chin. It's not just because she looks like Brock Lesnar, but she's got a chin, and she seems to be pretty resistant to getting cracked. I mean, I've seen her get some hematomas in UFC, I think in her first fight. But like she has improved her striking and seems to be able to scrap and not rely entirely on, oh, do I either get my judo throw and ground and pound or I get nothing. So I feel like she's gonna push the pace against Amanda Nunes, and yeah, I don't. I mean, Amanda Nunes is definitely a threat, but there's just so much wild card as to how she's gonna look coming off this long retirement. But then you look at the division as a whole, and you got Juliet Pena, yuck. Raquel Pennington, number 2, she had like neck surgery, I believe, so she's probably out for at least the end of the year. Norma Dumont, Mrs. Cake. She could be a problem, but she's not like anything exceptional where you're like, oh my God. And then the rest of the division's pretty depleted. So the real risk is actually, and it would actually be a risk if they moved up, is if Valentina moved up, and I'm putting her at the top of safe. If Valentina moved up, that could be a tough fight for Kayla, but you have to factor Kayla cuts a lot to make, was it bantamweight? And that means she'd have probably a considerable size advantage over Valentina. So even there, I'd still probably pick Harrison as a favorite over that. So she's probably got smooth sailing, and she honestly might retire by the end of the year. She gets probably 2 wins. And there's no one else to fight outside maybe like a returning Ronda. Good old Ronda. But moving on, Valentina, she's very safe. She definitely has a lot of looming contenders. I mean, let's see. Miran Farot, the French woman, she's definitely looming for a rematch. Natalie Silva, undefeated, probably the number 1 contender. My girl Blanchfield, I'm praying she gets that title shot, but even then, I don't know if she's ready to beat Valentina based off how she looked against Zhang Wei Li. You have Macy Barber coming off a pretty good win and has like I think 6 or 7 wins right now. So there's a bunch of people, and I feel like Valentina's to a degree kind of active because she's a company woman, and she's even though she doesn't always put on the most entertaining fights, she just seems like someone that when they need to put a co-main, because women. No, I love the women, and she's probably one of the more entertaining ones. But even if she's more on the frequency, I have 3. Natalie Silva is probably the biggest risk, but I don't know. Valentina's she's such a gamer and seems to know how to always squeak like a 3-2 decision as needed. So there's pretty low concern. I mean, the only real concern is if she has to vacate it. That's the only concern. If she chooses to move up to challenge Kayla, maybe at the White House, they might say, yeah, you got to vacate, even though she's probably one of the few that could bob and weave between both the divisions with how bantamweight's bleak so far. Moving on. Tom Aspinall. He's a weird one. I'm going to put him at the bottom of safe. It's weird because the rumors are they're going to do an interim belt because his eye is effed up. Damn you, Serial Gone. Bastard. No, I like Serial Gone. He's very entertaining. There's definitely concern when they do a rematch because we're like, oh, damn. Serial Gone, A, looked massive when they fought. And B, he was holding his own on the feet, and it was making you think, okay, Tom can't blitz this guy. This guy seems to have a distance management and a propensity to actually strike back from, range jab and all that, where it's going to be a lot of work for Tom. I would still imagine Tom has the big advantage on grappling, just as John Jones displayed. But yeah, I mean, Tom is weird because assuming we're not in a wild card where he literally doesn't have eyes moving forward, His biggest danger is obviously probably Cyril Gahn. And other than Cyril Gahn, I mean, you have Volkov, but he's already beaten Volkov. He's already beat Pavlich. He's already beat Blades. My boy Where's Waldo's looming, but I just don't know if Where's Waldo can survive on the ground if he gets taken down. So even though I want Waldo to get the title shot because the man's a G, gonna come in with an eye patch probably on that walkout, but maybe the only concern is just if you have some sort of looming character. If we don't really know what's going on with Pereira, but if the rumor is he's getting an intern title shot against um, Cyril Gain, which if he bulks up and actually doesn't come in undersized, I don't see why he couldn't pose a problem to win that. And Pereira is just an anomaly where his takedown defense seems to just magically keep improving year over year, where he's not going to get ragdolled. I don't know how good his jiu-jitsu is if Tom takes him down, but there's definitely concern there. And then obviously you have the man himself. He seems to, I mean, he only wants a one-off fight at White House, but who knows who he's going to get. And if he gets Tom, yeah, there's definitely some concern if Sean Jones draws Tom. But I think the odds of that are happening are low. But if it happens, there's concern for Tom's reign, especially with how he looked on his last fight. All right, moving on. Concern. Ooh, I'm gonna put him in the middle just because I have less faith in him than I do Jan. Volkanovski, mainly because unlike Jan, we've obviously seen Volkanovski get knocked out twice. And even with Jan, I don't ever see him get like hard, like dropped where you're like, oh my God, like now he's on fire flight skates. Like he gets hit, but he's also so good defensively with his boxing. Volkanovski, he's just been through a lot of wars, a lot more wars probably than Jan has. And on top of that, he's got some real danger. I mean, he's got get past Diego Lopez, which, as we saw, Diego lost 4-1, but he almost finished him and was at the second round. And even to the fifth, he's still throwing heat. So you're playing with the lottery with that one again to run that back with such a young, hungry lion. And the rumors seem to suggest that he's not going to retire after this. He'd probably retire if he loses, especially by KO, but I'm betting he's going to win that rematch. The concern is now, even though these boys do not seem to be getting favors from the company, Evlev and Lerone Murphy, and I would especially put concern on Evlev because that guy's just so good. I mean, I don't see why he couldn't take down Volkanovski to steal rounds, and he doesn't have bad striking. So you have him plus Little Roan, where they're just two undefeated dogs that, if anything, they're probably going to come in extra hungry because they've, especially Ivlev, where he's been inactive. He's begging for fights, can't get fights. Lerone Murphy just straight up getting disrespected. Had like one of the KOs of the year, and he still couldn't get that title shot. So I'm going to assume Volkanovski will probably do. He was a little inactive last year or this year, 2025, but he did have an injury, I believe, after the Lopez fight. And since he's kind of on this like retirement legacy tour with his final reign, most likely, I could see him fighting. I mean, if he's fighting, was it February? Like he might get 3 title fights this year. So, because especially if he's trying to get both scalps, and assuming they don't match up Murphy with Evlev, which I don't know if they will, he could fight all 3 of those names, and that is a lofty challenge to get through. I could see him getting through Lopez and maybe Murphy, maybe get Evlev, but to do all 3 in the calendar year, there's concern, and I think that's going to be his task that he's going to have to complete. So there's concern there, but I have hope for the man that he can retire perhaps on a good note. All right, moving on. Ilya. Assuming his wife or his ex-wife doesn't just take the belt in their lawsuit, she gets half of his wealth. So there's and that belt's probably worth a lot with those rubies he keeps adding. I mean, he's pretty safe. He does have some looming challenges, but just based off the timing alone, he doesn't seem like he's going to come back before the start of the second quarter. So I feel like they're definitely going to try to prime to put him on the White House, which implies he's only going to fight 2 times this year. June and maybe around November, put him on like Madison Square Garden because he's such a big name, assuming he wins in the White House. But the danger with him, and it's not that much of a danger, is just the fact that he's only going to fight the best of the best, to agree. He's either going to fight Patty or Justin, and Patty, I want Justin to win, but we'll assume Patty's probably going to get past Justin, squeak it. So he's going to have to fight Patty. Definitely rough because Patty Never been finished, I believe, at least in the UFC. Never been knocked out. He's got that Schnauzer nose or chin or whatever he says up there, up yonder. But definitely a tall task. And then you have Armin. But the reason why I think it's safe is because I feel like Ilya is not going to end up fighting Armin. He's going to get he's going to have to fight the interim, belt winner. And then I feel like he's just going to vacate. He's just going to vacate, bulk up, and push. And maybe that's where they do that on November, Madison Square Garden, him versus Islam, chase that third belt. So I feel like he probably only he's pulling like the Connor trick, although Connor didn't even defend it lightweight, where he's only going to do like one big fight. Like I said, could be Patty, could be Armin if Armin somehow squeaks another Vin. But yeah, I just feel like he's gonna be the most infrequent, and it's not his fault. It's gonna be a mix of you got this divorce that could drag out, and on top of that, the UFC is gonna really handpick when they put him back on, especially if they're building towards Islam, which it still feels like it could be a thing. Moving on, as we only have two left. Pereira. Damn. I want to put him at the bottom of safe, but I'll put him at the bottom safe for a lot of reasons. One, I just feel like they're not going to give Ankalaev an automatic rematch, and he's a real threat because assuming he was really compromised, which I actually do believe him. Like he got cracked, but it was like I don't know. I feel like if he has to fight Ankalaev again, Ankalaev's really going to push for that takedown, especially early on, and that's definitely still going to be a tough matchup. Even though he didn't take down Pereira once in their first fight, Ankalaev definitely has some power in his hands. He can strike, and he does have that takedown threat that's probably one of the worst in the division. So there's that. There's some concern that perhaps Yuri on a short notice opportunity will just appear and they'll do a trilogy, even though Pereira's already knocked him out twice. And Yuri, my boy, Yuri, the samurai, the Shi's samurai, I think he's just like Pereira, has like a punching chance against anyone. And he at times, had Pereira in danger. And he's been smarter in his recent fights to a degree, although he does still show some of that tism. He's just a dog, and it would be crazy impressive if Pereira could do it a third time. So there's some concern there, but I don't think that's happening unless, Pereira's booked for a fight. They pull out and Yuri just like spawns. So other than that, you have Carlos Olberg, who for some reason, there was a rumor that it was going to be him versus Pereira, but now Pereira seems to be fighting for the light heavyweight, or the heavyweight belt. And unlike others, I feel like Pereira is active enough and has proven himself. He's the one, he's the only. He gets that announcement from Bruce Buffy, where he might be able to keep the lightweight belt, but that just means he's probably going to fight maybe once this year because if he fights Cyril Gahn around early Q1, that means he probably won't defend the lightweight belt until maybe around June, White House. It's tricky. It's just like there's safety and concern, but honestly, he might just vacate the belt. Like out of some of these other characters I mentioned that could chase that double belt status, this and that, Valentina, etc., he might vacate this belt immediately because there's no point for him to hold it. Like he doesn't want to fight Ankalaev again. There's no point. And Yuri's fun, but the UFC's not going to push for that. If anything, Yuri's going to go for the belt once Pereira leaves it. And Carlos Olberg is just kind of like the odd man out. Sure, he's a model and he looks great down under, but yeah, he's just not a priority, even though he probably would be a good, tough fight and, threading on the feet and this and that. So Pereira's honestly the biggest wild card on here, and I'm very interested to see how they book him because he's a company man, and they seem like they're going to give him that opportunity to chase a third belt. All right, last but not least, the devil himself. And don't take that the wrong way, but Khamzat Chimaev. He's like the 1A to Islam being the 1B. Like Islam, there's danger for him because he has a lot of dangerous contenders. And on top of that, we have seen him in danger in prior fights, even though he looks amazing stacked up on his creatine dosage. Khamzat, he's also shown danger in the past, but on his current run, he looks scary good at middleweight. And if if you look at the contenders, there's just no one on there. Like, sure, you have someone like Anthony Fluffy Hernandez that he's a good grappler. He can wrestle and he has a good cardio, but he's fluffy. That's his name. And he does not have like I feel like that size where even if he's a very good jujitsu practitioner, it's just on paper. I don't see him doing much. Nazardine Imanov, the French man, he's currently slated to get the next title shot. He does have some wrestling background, and he's good on the feet, very fast hands, and he showed that against Adesanya. But again, Chimaev is even a worse case than what Islam is, where if you don't have your wrestling in check, you're just going to lose every round because you're not going to be able to maintain your guard on bottom where you can actually threaten submissions, and he can't actually just squeak rounds. Islam can obviously cheese the system down there. Chimaev is just awful. Like, he is awful once he gets on you. He obviously himself is like a jiu-jitsu, I think, black belt, maybe brown belt, somewhere in the middle. But even though he can't submit DDP for 25 minutes, he's just got such dangerous top pressure, and he's not bad on the feet. So, I mean, Sean Strickland seems to be this dark horse. That would be crazy if Sean Strickland ends up getting that fight, and all these rumors of like their spars in the gym, and you find out Strickland actually is really good at wrestling. That's not gonna happen. And you keep moving down the list. Adesanya, he's ranked 6. Sure, he could probably get a title shot. He gets a title shot against on a loss, a win, on a hiatus. But even though he's like faced a lot of wrestlers in the past, Yoel Romero, etc., I just don't see why someone like him, even if he has a striker's chance, is gonna not just get wet blanketed. Renier de Ritter was a looming threat, but he lost, and he seems like he's taking a long hiatus just to kind of reset his body. And Robert Whitaker, he got smushed, broke his jaw, teeth, all that. Yeah, there's really no one. And Hamzat's probably the worst when it comes to activity. Like, obviously, Ilya is not the most active, but in this case, he's got his divorce looming. Islam's the most active, but he's still, to a degree, averages two a year and partially religious. Hamza, he's got the religious excuse. And on top of that, he has an injury, like a little baby hand injury, as if he strikes anyway. So he doesn't seem like he's fighting till like start of quarter 2, maybe even end of probably April, May. So he might fight 2 times, and he's already said he's only going to do 1 title defense and move up and try to chase Pereira. So yeah, I mean, he doesn't fight a lot, and he has no real challengers. I mean, the only challenge is if he goes up to light heavyweight and actually has to face a guy that's his height and his size. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Perhaps there'll be a few wild cards, but let me know what you think. Would you put someone in a different position? And do we have any hope for Mrs. Derns? Like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think.